Hi everyone, Janelle here. I'm a functional nutritionist and doctor of natural medicine. This is my podcast where we talk about midlife wellness in the mountains. Today, I talked with my brilliant friend and functional nutrition colleague, Karen Mitchell from Bozeman, Montana. We dug into intermittent fasting, who it works for, who might want to avoid it, what some of the benefits are, and how to go about it. I love how Karen thinks into things functionally and methodically, and I know you are going to appreciate this too. Welcome, everybody, and welcome, Karen. I'm so happy to have you here to discuss intermittent fasting through a functional lens. So, you and I have been colleagues in functional nutrition for a few years now, and we both work with women in the mountains. But even more exciting is that we recently were able to meet in person in Colorado, and that was incredible. I loved you at first glance, but again, I'm excited to have you here to chat, especially at that functional level. So, because you and I think functionally, we go beyond the trendy fads and the hot topics like intermittent fasting, and we get more specific because we dig into how these concepts interact with each unique person
Mhm.
and with their goals at their unique time in life, and how these things impact all the systems of their body. So yay for thinking functionally about intermittent fasting. Thank you for being here, Karen.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. And likewise, Janelle, when I met you, I was like, hey, we're two peeps in a pod. So I'm psyched to meet you and get to know you better and see you in person.
Yes.
And yeah, I love to talk functional health. So this will be fun.
Awesome. Okay. So we're here to talk about intermittent fasting. And to start off, intermittent fasting is not a new concept. It may
Yeah.
be a new trend to talk about, a new fad, but it is absolutely not a new concept. So let's get clear off the get go, just set the stage. What are we talking about when we're saying intermittent fasting?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, a lot of people are talking about intermittent fasting in this time restricted feeding realm. And to be clear, I mean, fasting goes back, so long. In fact, a lot of religious and spiritual traditions have fasting as part of their work and or practice. And what we hear of today, this intermittent fasting, like I said, most people are equating that to time restricted feeding. So they're looking at these time feeding windows and then windows when they're not eating. In general, that's what we're hearing about.
Yeah, thank you. And it's funny, it just made me think they're also looking for the formula. What is
Well,
the number? But we're gonna get to that in a second. But
right.
yeah. So, okay, let's talk about what some of the we're kind of like setting the stage here. What
Yep.
are some of the researched benefits of
Mhm.
intermittent fasting or timed eating?
Sure. So a lot of the benefits that are showing up in research is weight loss.
Hmm.
So, a lot of that intermittent fasting kind of showed up for people as a way to lose weight and also increase insulin sensitivity. It's been found also in the research that shows that any kind of intermittent fasting can reduce inflammation, like whole body inflammation, as well as has some cardioprotective benefits. I think in general, when we think about, there's a lot of information out there about autophagy. And, just so everybody knows, autophagy is where our cells basically clean themselves out. And we're like this body, we're just trillions of cells. So as we grow and change and shift and are, you know, exposed to different things in our environment, cleaning out those cells is super important. So there is a lot of research out there that shows that autophagy increases with fasting. However, a lot of what I've seen is like 3 to 4 days of fasting trips autophagy. So that one is a little bit hard for me. We can also create autophagy, insulin sensitivity, and weight loss in a lot of different ways. Um, So I want to just kind of put that out there. But yeah, there's a lot of research on those things that I just mentioned.
That's great. And I just want to clarify too. I think this is really important at the beginning to clarify because the first thing you said was weight loss, which is true. But I just want to make sure everybody knows we're not even talking about eating less. Like, this isn't even a conversation about reducing calories. This is a
No.
conversation about when you're eating, not how
Yeah.
much you're eating. So you could be eating the same amount, just in different eating windows. So the mechanism that that weight loss works is through insulin sensitivity, metabolic flexibility, all of those things, burning fat. So it's a tool for weight loss because of all those things that it does, which is really cool because you're not eating less. So I always love that, those kinds of
Yeah.
things.
Well, totally. And, to your point, what I think is really important is like, you know, sometimes for people, when they start to, even if their calories aren't changed, when they start to have a plan that they follow, so if they're saying they're going to stop eating at 6 p.m. and start at 6 a.m., immediately they start to change the types of foods that they're eating.
Mm,
So even even if they're eating the same calories and everything else, the timing is changing oftentimes for a person, what they're choosing at what time, but also they start to choose foods that are a little more life-giving. So
mhm.
there's that aspect of it too, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, so maybe it's just like the mindfulness. You're setting an
Mhm.
intention around your habit. So maybe just that mindfulness alone has other benefits. So I like that. I
Yes.
I didn't even think about that. And then a few other things that I've seen research behind, and maybe I'll even tag some of these research papers,
Mhm.
is benefits for your microbiome. So,
Mhm.
some timed eating can help with that. And then also with dopamine receptors. So,
Mhm.
that's kind of cool. And even your immune system. I mean, there's so many benefits, but,
But
but functionally speaking, it has to be done in a way that's appropriate for each unique person, which I know you also practice that way.
yeah, well, and it's funny how you mentioned like all of those benefits. We have to remember that there are multiple ways to get those benefits.
Yeah.
So for some people, they might have success in time restricted eating per se, but there are other people that may not.
Hmm.
And we can get those benefits that we've mentioned, you've mentioned, that I've mentioned, in multiple different ways. So
Hmm.
I will say, like right off the bat, I'm not necessarily a full fan of intermittent fasting because of that bio-individual piece. And we've read so much, there's just so much information out there about intermittent fasting, and it has become a bit of a fad that I see a lot of people trying to do that for themselves without the functional lens or
Yeah.
without understanding the why or the when or the how, and then it doesn't always work out well for people.
Mhm.
So I think it's important, as in all the information, including what we're talking about today, there's just so much information out there for people to glean, but always distilling it down to what works for each individual body is so important. Body, mind, psyche, heart, everything.
Right. It's all connected. Yeah,
Hmm.
I love that point, and I think that's why this is a hot topic, is
Yeah.
because people wanna jump on, "It's so bad for you. It's so good for you." And the truth is both. I mean, it's all
Right.
true because it depends on the person. So that's why I'm hoping you and I can sort of tease out some of these details to help people consider it for their unique body. And I'm with you. It's not an end all be all. It's not my go-to, but it is a super effective tool when
Yeah.
used for the right person in the right way. So let's get right into that. So
Hmm.
let's talk about the people that should be cautious with
Hmm.
intermittent fasting, or it might actually even be harmful for. Let's talk
Hmm.
about that, just like a list of all of those
Hmm.
different issues or circumstances or people.
Yeah, so first off, I think of anyone that has any kind of history of eating disorders or body dysmorphia or emotional things around food and food choices, and even people that have like a history of obsessive compulsive disorder and things like that. I don't think anyone in that area, unless super cared for by a therapist and other things, should do intermittent fasting unless we can work through those issues. So I will say that right off the bat. In a lot of the studies right now, anyone that has any circadian rhythm challenges, so maybe if their circadian rhythm or they're having day and night is flipped, or someone that has a lot of shift work in their life, or different timings of their wake sleep rhythms, they don't usually, it's contraindicated for people like that. Also, anytime where we have adrenal insufficiency or we have high stress moments where our body is really trying to process a lot of stress, there's been a lot of research that shows that that's not good for intermittent fasting. Low thyroid, that also can be tough because that is taxing on the body. What else? Can you think of a couple more things that I missed?
I think you've hit some really important points. I also don't tend to use it with really lean women in
Mm-hmm.
their 20s and 30s because it can often mess with hormones.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't suggest super lean women at that age
Mm-hmm.
do it. It is a stressor, and what you mentioned about the adrenals is so true. It is a stressor on our body, and some
Mm-hmm.
stressors are really good because then we bounce back and have more resilience after. But when our stress bucket is full, we don't want to add this to the story. I pregnant and nursing women.
Oh,
I
oh, right.
I I
Yep.
don't suggest it for ever.
No.
And I've started to even consider people without their detox pathways open because
Yes.
when we burn fat, we can release a lot of toxins. And so
Mm-hmm.
if someone's not pooping, we want to work on that first or, do some
Yep.
body brushing or sauna or something to support those detox pathways for when we kick into that fat burning mode, which is what we want, but we
Yep.
want to be flushing all those toxins out.
Ooh, good point. And also, functionally speaking, we really need our first number one goal is always blood sugar balance. That's how I view the lens. And so if a person is having a lot of trouble with like hypoglycemia or having big, deep drops in their blood sugar throughout the day or having instances of bonking or getting lightheaded and dizzy, I would not recommend intermittent fasting for a person like that until we got that blood sugar in balance, more
Yeah.
balance, because then we could have a whole host of other things going on.
Yeah, I love that. And I was kind of hoping in a little bit we talked about some of the steps to,
Hmm.
if someone wanted to play around with intermittent fasting. And I do think what you just said for everybody is true. Like step
Hmm.
one would be just making sure your blood sugar is a little bit more regulated and you're doing all those basics that we're going to come back to. But
Hmm.
before we go there, I mean, I think we did a really good list about who to be
We did.
cautious. I
Yeah.
think I think that
Good
was
job.
really good. I feel good. Good job us. Um but so before we jump into sort of like how to move into it and the different kinds of intermittent fasting, maybe we could discuss what symptoms are even of metabolic imbalances. So,
Mm.
and especially because I found out I had metabolic imbalances and I am a fit athlete. I've always eaten really healthy.
Yeah.
But there were other things like stress
Hmm.
that were throwing my blood sugar off, and I was actually becoming less sensitive to insulin. And then, of course, in midlife, our hormones are changing, so I started to feel those symptoms, and so those were all clues for me. And then I wore a CGM that
Oh,
my
good.
blood sugar needed work. I was
Yeah.
floored, shocked because we think it's all only for diabetics or super overweight older people, and it's not.
No.
I think we all need to work on our blood sugar.
We all do. In fact, I always say when I talk about blood sugar balance, I'm like, and you might think as soon as I say blood sugar, people say, but I'm not a diabetic. I'm
Right.
not pre-diabetic. How do I? And I'm like, well, hold on, it doesn't actually matter. If we're breathing, living humans, we need to, and honestly, like I come at it from, and I'm sure you do too, from the nervous system perspective.
Hmm.
Because if to me, blood sugar balance is a number one because it helps our body, our nervous system, our emotional state to prepare for the next step of work that we might be doing, right? So what are some clues that our blood sugar might be not balanced or we might be having big spikes or big lows? So let's just see. Anxiety,
Hmm.
irritability, hangry, um having times where you feel like elated and excited and like on it, compared to feeling like you're about to go take a nap and curl up in your bed multiple times a day, or feeling on the bottom side, feeling kind of tired or lack of full mental cognition are big ones. So those are clues. Um, Other clues would be kind of that feeling of being like a little running on adrenaline, like that wired but tired feeling can be like you're feeling like you're kind of buzzing, which is why sometimes athletes can also have
Mhm,
not notice that
mhm.
they're running up and down low, because as an athlete, we kind of are trained to kind of push and run through some of those things. We've trained ourselves to do that, so it can be hard to recognize um that feeling of bonky, of like kind of getting the shakes or getting fainty or feeling like woozy, or like I said, lack of mental clarity can be that. So I always focus on the clues that we can find in our body without like a CGM, or without pricking our finger, because I find that when we can start equating how it feels like to have what it feels like in our body to have our blood sugar balanced, then we like build that wellness toolbox for forever.
Yeah, so I think that is such a good list. And I love what you're saying about tapping into your own body. I think that's really important. Um,
Hmm.
I'm going to add
Yes.
headaches
Yep.
can often be a sign. Midsection weight gain in
Yep.
midlife can be a
Hmm.
sign that our metabolism needs some attention. And sleep issues, waking up in the middle of the night, sort of on high alert, cortisol going, that can be, and people just don't associate these things with
Oh,
metabolic issues. And I'm going to say, if you're a woman at midlife, likely there's some cleanup work to do just because of
yes.
estrogen declining and how that helps us to be so much more sensitive to insulin. Um, and then you were saying, which I really liked about tapping into your own body. And I do 110% agree with that. But I also think when you do see the data
It
about actually
helps.
what's going on in your body, like I said, I just don't think I would have connected those things, even being a teacher of this, that was
Yes.
really what was going on in my body. So I do think there becomes a point where just learning that hard data about your body, you can't create stories around that. It just is what it is.
No.
Um,
And to your point, like to remember that, because the individuality is so important, like how we learn and how we change our habits and how we cognitively understand what's happening in our body. Some people really love the data from a CGM, and some people really love to see that. And they think they're, like you said, you think they're doing great. And then, like, wait a second. So there are just all different types of people, how we learn, how we take in information, how we create habit change. And yeah, I think you're right. There's no one right way.
right. And yeah, well said. And then if we're thinking about lab work, which sometimes I look at lab work functionally, signs
Hmm.
could be like high triglycerides. People are
Hmm.
sometimes surprised that that can be caused by elevated blood sugar, and then high inflammatory markers
Markers.
like CRP, obviously elevated glucose,
Yep.
elevated
And
A1C.
see.
So those can just be like early signs. And of course, all of these things can be due to something else too. Like this is not to say that is definitely your problem, but these can all be signs to just start getting curious. Like we're not diagnosing, we're just getting curious.
Hmm.
And of course, I mean anyone that works on the first steps, which we could maybe move to next, um, it's everyone can do that. The first step measures for improving blood sugar, I would say. I mean, I can't really think of anyone that couldn't take, the first baby steps of fat, fiber, protein at every meal and snack, sleeping. What else? What
Well,
are what are like some of the baby steps to improving blood sugar?
yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, to me, I see probably over 100 people a year, and it always boggles my mind how the blood sugar balance is the first step for everyone. And
Everything.
even if I think that maybe someone may not be, I'll like watch and then I'll be like, wait a minute, nope, we got to go and check in on this. And we always come back to it. So the first step for me, honestly, is tracking. That's what my first step is. I don't know if that's yours. That I have people do tracking. Like I love the Food Move Poop Journal for that because if they track first, just like a CDGM in the data, then they start to notice. And I always have them track in their native habitat. So in other words, I don't tell them to, we're not making any changes. I want to see exactly how they're showing up. And then we go over it together. And then I start having them add the blood sugar balance with the fat, fiber, and protein. And I walk them through that. I often do the types of foods to eat first, and then I let them go for a week like that. And then I start adding the timing of the foods,
Hmm.
depending, because I find that if we do one step at a time, the effects already are so huge when we start adding fiber, fat,
Hmm.
and protein
Hmm.
that then we can tweak the timing based on their own habits and what they're showing up. And then obviously for me, I don't know about you, but sleep and stress come next
Yes.
in that first kind of level. It's like we're going to work on all of those things as we go, but I'm going to work on nervous system regulation first with the food, then the timing, then we're going to support the sleep, and then we're going to start working on mindset and looking at how they're connecting to stress in their life, mitigating stress. And I try to do it as simple and practical as possible. I'm sure you probably do the same, but those would be my steps. Am I missing anything that you're thinking of?
No, I'm totally on board. And I think this is so great because our conversation is about intermittent fasting, but like you can't even go there before you do these really important foundations. So I love that we're on board like that because the thing
Mhm.
is if you do just jump into intermittent fasting right away, you might feel like crap. I mean, it could be just like this awful experience. And I'm all about, just like you, sleep, stress, and fat, fiber, protein first. I even think longer than a week, like as long as someone will do that,
Oh,
depending where they're coming from. I
oh
mean,
yeah,
those things have these snowball effects on our body that just kind of make everything better.
better.
So for some people, that could be enough. Maybe they don't even need to go to the intermittent fasting. Um, but I'm totally on board that those are the first steps. And then after that, when people want to start playing with intermittent fasting, I don't know about you, but I think a 12-12 is a great baseline for everyone to get to next. Like, can you spend 12 hours not eating, 12 hours eating? And that sounds really hard at first, but if you stop eating at 7 p.m. and then start eating at 7 a.m.,
Yep.
I mean that's pretty easy. And that just, I think, that should become easy for everybody. Like if you can't do that, that's what your goal is for now.
Yeah. You and I are completely like simpatico. We're in cahoots
Love it.
because that's exactly what I do. And I don't, yeah, no, we're not doing the fat, fiber, protein and the sleep and stuff over a week. Sometimes that's months, depending on
Yeah.
where someone's coming from. But I agree. Like, in fact, even just that 12-hour of having a break from calories and food, that can be plenty for most people because not only does it, in fact, we kind of touched on that earlier, but it gives people a framework. And a lot of people binge eat or eat after dinner. And
Just like
sometimes
mindlessly.
mindlessly, like
Yeah.
especially like they're trying to be good all day and they're eating what they think is their best things all day and then they get starving after dinner and they're getting ready to go to bed and they've put their kids to bed or whatever happens and then they're just raiding the pantry mindlessly. And to be honest, like when we start to remove that and getting to the base and the root of like what's causing that kind of binging or that late night eating, or then now we start to shift the metabolic patterns in and of themselves,
Hmm.
because we're starting to address that nervous system support, the stress support, that emotional, mental support. It's so important.
It's so important. And there's so many places I want to take this because it's all so vital no matter what your health goals are.
Mhm.
And I think all of what we're saying is just a really great place to hang out for most people. And then let's just keep going because if people want to build on that and start playing, because there are benefits when we do it this way and we build slowly and we do it right. So if people want to build on it, we haven't even talked about hormones, but just to briefly go there, women, if they're still cycling in their luteal phase, when we are trying to get progesterone nice and high, um,
Hmm.
that would be a time to maybe lay off the longer intermittent fasts
Hmm.
during that, the couple weeks before we menstruate. So I just had to throw that in there quick
The
because,
building phase.
yeah. So
Yep.
otherwise, if we're there and 12 hours feels good, to go without eating and all of that, we're looking at these emotional components that you're talking about, the habits, starting to address all that. For me, the next place I like to really focus on is snacks. Like, I think we've
Hmm.
just been lied to for years, like metabolically speaking. Our goal is to not have to snack all the time. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying everyone should rip their snacks away because metabolically you might need it. So,
Yeah.
again, this is another place to just baby step it.
Hmm.
Because you could, really need to work on your insulin sensitivity before you can just tear a snack away.
Yeah.
But I think everyone would, do well shooting to not snack all day and just have those set meals and a break in between where your
Yes.
blood sugar can just kind of chill out, your metabolism can do its thing, your digestive system can rest, and all of that. Do you kind of agree? Like, do you go there next with snacks, or what's your next step?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, snacking is like the number one question I get. Like,
Mm,
should I snack? When should I snack? Is snacking bad? So I come from the gut health perspective always, right? And what I always look at is what's going on in the gut, because if someone is not digesting very well or they're eating food, but it's not being assimilated, then they might need those regular snacks because they just can't regulate their body because the digestion's not functioning. So my question is, I always look underneath it and kind of come at it from that crowd in approach or crowd out approach, depending on how you look at it. So if a person is snacking, I always want to look at the root of like, why are you
mhm,
snacking? Like,
mhm.
what's going on? Are you becoming famished? Are you bored? Are you tired? So we start with that, like raising awareness for why the snacking is occurring, especially with athletes too. I mean, honestly, there's just so many reasons why people snack. So if from where I come from, same as probably you are saying, it's like we got to look at why they're snacking before we pull that snack away. And once we find out why and we kind of start to correct that problem, then they don't need the snacks,
Right.
right? Then, so
That's where we're
instead of
trying to go.
that's where we're trying to go. We don't want them to need the snacks because we
Right.
don't like, you're right. It's like almost like pulling the training wheels off of a bike on a little kid when they start riding their bike and they still don't understand balance. Like you can't, or someone on a tight rope and you take away their balance pole before they've had enough trips across the wire. It's like we got to make sure that we always give people safety. Really, safety is a number one for me: mental, emotional, physical safety. And sometimes pulling someone's snacks is not safe.
Yes, I totally agree. And I love all of those analogies. And that's why I think thinking functionally about intermittent fasting takes away the hot topicness of it because you're addressing all of these nuances that are so important. So, spending time in each of these areas to get to these building steps before you go farther is really important. Because I've even found, people with microbiome imbalances, those yeasts and bacteria are literally craving sugar. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you might need to eddy out and address those imbalances before you can just rip snacks away. So, yes, we're not ripping
Totally.
snacks away, but our goal is to work on supporting our body so that we don't need them.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so Karen, if you are sleeping well, if you're managing stress, if you've done all the other steps that we talked about, and of course, if you fit the criteria that we said at the beginning, and then if you want to play more with the idea of intermittent fasting, what do you, with your practice, with your clients so far, what do you see that actually works for people?
Yeah, that time restricted eating seems to be really popular. And that's that, the eating window, the 12-hour eating window or the 8-hour eating window. I like to just have people just definitely do the 12-hour fast at night. So stopping dinner at 7 and then starting at 7, for an example. Um, I tend, to be honest, like for people, if they're feeling like they want to do a little bit of more fasting, I actually prefer them to do like one fast day a week rather than a longer 12-hour window. So, like, it might look like every Wednesday, someone may only eat 500 to 800 calories that day. So it's like a supported fast. It's not even a full fast. And the reason why I actually like that is because you can still get some benefits of fasting, but you're still eating a little bit. And it helps to really create that metabolic resilience, which is what we're working through. There's so many different ways. There's the 5-2 method of fasting, which is 5 days you eat your regular whatever you're doing, and then 2 days you're doing a 800 or less calorie day. People have success with that. If someone wants to go to a shorter than 12-hour window, then I will just talk them through and maybe only have them do it like 3 days a week. So if they want to do a 16-hour fast or even a 20-hour fast, then I might just help them only do that maybe twice or 3 days a week. And then the other days of the week, they're eating regular, because I'm always coming at it for the resilience and building that muscle of being able to kind of like keep everything moving. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you're speaking into resilience because I find working with people that is a huge concept that they need to understand. Like they're looking for, okay, what am I going to do every day? And I definitely agree with you. Our body likes diversity. Like we
Mhm.
like like we are meant to switch things up, not I mean, routine is great, but I am totally on board with this for seeing it work well to do 1 day a week. That's also what I do. I do the 5-1-1 mostly with people where they do that just 12-hour break for 5 days, which again, like we said, should be normal. And then 1 day a week. Yeah, just like you said, I just have them push that eating window if they want to a little bit more. And then
Mhm.
I actually have 1 day, I love this, as a feast day. So one
Yes.
day of the week, they're just like, let's not even think about this nonsense. Let's just
Mhm.
wake up and eat and just relax and calm. And that kind of tells that nervous system, all's good. Like no need to panic. We're safe.
Good. Yeah, I love that you said that, because I think the feast day is super important. And, it starts to become a red flag. I just had someone last week who was like, Karen, I've been 16-hour fasting every single day. I'm trying to lose weight. And I'm like, well, how long have you been doing it? And they're like, 4 weeks. I'm like, how much have you lost? Like, well, I lost 20 pounds, but now I'm stagnant. And I'm like, okay, hold the phone. So this is where we want to take a break and introduce a feast day or change around the fasting, because we're not, these kinds of tools, they're not made to be like a 16-hour fasting window day after day after day for months on end. Like, we are made to be flexible. And indeed, I feel like the biggest issue with health today is that we've created inflexible bodies, or non-resilient, or we've closed our resilient window. So I think anytime we think about intermittent fasting or blood sugar balance or anything like that, our goal is always to get a bigger resiliency window so that we have more room to play before we hit those guardrails on the side, which is like poor health, right?
Boom. I mean, you just brought it back perfectly to the beginning. And this is a tool.
Mhm.
And I think the more clear you are and calm and methodical about it, the more it's going to be successful. So I love that you said that. So have a plan, move slowly. If it's not working, like you said, it's not about doing more harder. It's about reevaluating, switching it up, finding a new something else to try. So it's all amazing. Thank
That's
you.
so great. Yeah,
You're so
no, thank
brilliant.
you.
So
Oh, thank
okay,
you. You too.
yeah. So if people want to find you, Karen, how can they do that?
Sure. I'm in two places. So Karen Mitchell Wellness on the web, or ENSO, ENSO Natural Medicine in Bozeman, Montana. So I work locally and globally. So yeah.
Awesome. And you're on Instagram. Is that the place on
Oh
social
yeah.
media where you are
Oh yeah.
sometimes?
I'm on
Okay.
Instagram too,
Okay.
at Karen Mitchell Wellness.
Awesome. So go follow Karen. She has lots of great information and you can find her website, which is awesome also. So thank you so much, Karen, for joining me. I
Oh,
appreciate it digging into this hot, kind of edgy topic. So thank you.
yeah. Thank you, Janelle. I really enjoyed being with you and taking the time to talk about these things that are just like near and dear to our hearts and like everything that we do in our work. So that's really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That's it for this week. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a comment and a review as that helps it reach more people. You can find me and the courses I teach, the Midlife Hormone Club and the Energy Club, online at Mountain Rebalance. I help midlife women understand their body and age better. If that sounds like you, please join my newsletter. And if there's a topic you'd like me to cover here or an expert you want me to have on, let me know. In the meantime, keep playing, and here's to aging our best.